My husband gave my first-class seat to his childhood best friend, so I stopped paying for everyone. 18 hours before our family vacation, my husband canceled my first-class ticket. More accurately, he didn't cancel the seat. He gave it to another woman. Claire decided to come with us to San Diego, Ryan said, standing at the kitchen island like he was telling me it might rain tomorrow. The flight is full. I called the airline. There aren't any other seats left. I looked at the boarding pass on his phone. The passenger name wasn't mine. Claire Bennett. I had spent 6 months planning that trip. Round-trip first-class tickets from Denver to San Diego. 3 suites at a waterfront resort. A 7-passenger SUV. Zoo passes. A sunset sailing dinner. Reservations at a restaurant overlooking the ocean. I had booked all of it. Ryan's parents had said it would be their first real vacation in years. His younger sister, Madison, had joked that her one wish before finishing college was to fly first class once in her life. So I upgraded everyone. Now the only person without a seat was me. What am I supposed to do? I asked. Ryan slid a set of car keys across the counter. Drive. For a second, I honestly thought I had misunderstood him. Drive from Denver to San Diego? It's about 16 hours. You always say road trips are romantic. He smiled like he was offering me a gift. And, honestly, it works out. You can take everyone's big luggage. Checking all of this would be a nightmare. I followed his eyes toward the entryway. 6 oversized suitcases and 2 golf bags were lined up by the door. Not one of them belonged to me. I looked back at him. So I paid for everyone's first-class tickets. You gave mine to Claire. And now you want me to drive 16 hours alone and haul everybody's luggage. Ryan's mouth tightened. Don't make it sound ugly. Claire just got back. She's been in Europe for years, and you know long drives trigger her migraines. Then she doesn't have to come. Natalie. His voice dropped. It's one vacation. Don't turn this into something embarrassing. Before I could answer, his mother, Linda, came in from the living room. Claire grew up with Ryan, she said. After her father died, the least we can do is look after her a little. You're healthy. Driving isn't hard for you. Madison leaned against the doorway, holding the tablet I had bought her the month before. And Claire hasn't traveled with us in forever, she said. You're literally the best driver out of all of us. Put on a podcast. It'll be kind of fun. I looked at the 4 of them. No one had asked whether I wanted to do it. They were only discussing the best way to make me accept a decision they had already made. Robert, Ryan's father, finally looked up from his phone. Not to defend me. The point of a family trip is to keep the peace, he said. Let's not ruin it over something small. Something small. I almost laughed. Then the doorbell rang. Madison practically ran to answer it. The woman outside wore a cream trench coat and sunglasses that probably cost more than my first car. The second she stepped inside, Ryan moved toward her and took her suitcase from her hand without being asked. Claire Bennett. Ryan's childhood best friend. And, for 6 months in high school, his first girlfriend. Now Claire stood in my house and gave me a soft, regretful smile. Natalie, I'm really sorry. Her voice was gentle enough to sound completely reasonable. I told Ryan if there wasn't a seat, I wouldn't go. I really did. But he said the trip wouldn't feel right without me. She paused. I didn't know he was going to give me your seat. I looked at Ryan. He didn't deny it. Claire turned back to me. I can drive instead. Seriously. No, Ryan cut in immediately. You can't drive that long. But Natalie. Natalie will be fine. He said it without even looking at me. And something inside me went quiet. Anger takes energy. It depends on the belief that the person hurting you is still worth reaching. Once you understand that they aren't, anger can disappear surprisingly fast. I picked up the car keys. Okay. Everyone in the room hesitated. Ryan had clearly expected a fight. When I gave him none, his shoulders relaxed. See, he said. I knew you weren't going to be unreasonable about this. I nodded. You all go to the airport tomorrow morning. Madison pointed at the mountain of bags. What about the luggage? Leave it with me. She grinned. I knew you were the best sister-in-law ever. No one noticed that I took my phone and walked into my home office instead of checking the driving route to San Diego. The first thing I did was message my attorney. Daniel, are you available tonight? I need to talk about protecting my finances before a possible divorce. Then I opened the travel app. Waterfront resort, canceled. 3 suites, canceled. 7-passenger SUV, canceled. VIP zoo tickets, canceled. Sunset sailing dinner, canceled. Thursday's Ocean View restaurant, canceled. Then I logged into my credit card account and removed Ryan as an authorized user from the high-limit travel card in my name. A confirmation box appeared. Are you sure you want to revoke this authorized user's purchasing access? I clicked yes. The entire process took less than 7 minutes. I had spent 6 months building the perfect family vacation for them. It took 7 minutes to take my labor back. Only after the confirmation emails arrived did I let myself think about how we had gotten here. I had heard her name hundreds of times during our 7-year marriage. Claire had grown up next door to the Coles. She and Ryan had gone to school together, attended prom together, applied to colleges together. Then Claire was accepted into a design program in Paris, moved to Europe, and their teenage relationship ended. Ryan always told me it had been nothing serious. We were kids, he would say. It barely counts. But 3 months after Claire moved back to Denver, that supposedly meaningless teenage history was suddenly everywhere in our adult lives. She came to weekend barbecues. She came to Linda's birthday dinner. She came when Madison moved apartments. On our wedding anniversary, Ryan showed up 3 hours late because Claire had just broken up with someone and was having a really hard night. I hadn't made a scene then. That anniversary should probably have warned me more than it did. I had booked a table at a small Italian restaurant where Ryan had taken me on our 3rd date. I left work early, changed into the blue dress he once said was his favorite, and arrived before him because that was how our marriage worked by then. I planned. I reserved. I remembered. At 7:10, he texted that he was running late. At 7:45, he said Claire had called him crying. At 8:30, he told me to order without him. He finally arrived after 10, when the restaurant had already brought me the check. He wasn't cruel about it. That almost made it worse. He kissed my forehead and said, "You know how she gets when she's alone." Her breakup was rough. I remember asking, "And our anniversary?" He looked genuinely confused, as though I had forced 2 unrelated facts into the same sentence. "We're married, Natalie. We'll have another anniversary." She needed someone tonight. I went home with him anyway. The next morning, he brought me coffee in bed and acted relieved when I didn't mention it again. That became the pattern. He would cross a line, then wait for my competence to smooth it over. If I stayed calm, he called me understanding. If I objected, he called me insecure. Either way, he never had to change. Not because I was naive. I just refused to become the kind of woman who searched her husband's phone every night without evidence because another woman existed in his orbit. Ryan and I had been married for 7 years. If you saw us then, you probably wouldn't have guessed that we had gotten together during one of the hardest periods of his family's life. 9 years earlier, Robert's landscaping company was collapsing under business debt when a heart problem added medical bills on top of it. Ryan was 26, working in sales, and earning enough to support himself, but not enough to rescue his parents. We had been dating about a year. I worked in financial compliance consulting, earned well, and had savings. I did not magically erase every debt. I organized what they owed, helped negotiate with the bank, used $78,000 of my own savings to eliminate the worst balances, and helped Linda set up assistance and payment plans. The family eventually climbed out of the hole. One night Ryan held me and said, "I'll never forget what you've done for us." I believed him. After we married, we moved into the house I had bought before the wedding. I helped with Madison's college costs, covered family expenses during Linda's knee surgery, kept the family phone plan in my name, paid the deposit on Madison's apartment, and covered insurance on her used SUV. I also paid for most holiday trips, family dinners, and the emergencies that somehow became mine. No one forced me at first. I believed that when one person earns more, they carry more for a while. But somewhere along the way, my choice became their expectation. Ryan earned about $65,000 a year and could support himself. His paycheck simply became money for hobbies while mine handled the mortgage, travel, family costs, and whatever he considered important. Whenever I tried to rebalance our budget, he said the same thing. Why are you making everything about money? We're married. For years, that sentence made me feel petty. That night, it finally sounded different. People who tell you not to keep track are often keeping track themselves. They just like the numbers better when you're the one losing. Before dinner, Linda leaned out of the kitchen. Natalie, would you make that roast chicken tonight? Claire used to love it. I was on the couch reading the cancellation confirmation from the resort. No. Linda blinked. Excuse me. I looked up. Claire hasn't been home in years. You always talk about how much she loved your cooking. This is perfect. You should make it for her. Linda's expression tightened. She knew how to cook. She had just spent years getting comfortable waiting for me to do it. My knee isn't great, she said. Your doctor said it healed well at your last follow-up. The room went silent. Madison looked like she wanted to laugh and decided not to. Ryan came downstairs just in time to hear the last part. Do you have to do this? He asked. Do what? Punish everybody over a plane ticket. I set my phone down. It's not about a plane ticket. Then what is it about? I looked at him for a few seconds. Never mind. You wouldn't understand. I stood and grabbed my coat. He stepped in front of me. Where are you going? Dinner. Dinner is almost ready here. Then enjoy it. I drove downtown and took myself to a steakhouse. I didn't cry in the parking lot. I didn't call a friend and spend 2 hours screaming about Claire. I didn't open social media and compare myself to her photos. I ordered a ribeye, a lobster tail, and a glass of Cabernet. Then I took Daniel's call at the table. The first thing I need you not to do is panic and move money around impulsively, he said. The house was purchased before marriage, so that's relatively clean. With joint accounts, only move funds you can clearly document as yours and leave enough for ordinary shared expenses. Download statements, tax returns, credit card records. And if you think Ryan has used your credit for someone else, preserve that evidence now. Understood. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure you're ready to do this? I stared at the candle between the salt and pepper shakers. No. It was the truth. 7 years of marriage doesn't switch off because one evening becomes unbearable. But I'm sure I'm done being unprepared. After the call, I downloaded 12 months of statements from the travel card. At the time, I had no idea that decision would matter more than the seat Ryan gave away. I got home after 11. The downstairs lights were off. No one had called me. That wasn't surprising. In their plan, I still had to drive 16 hours the next day. Where I spent the evening only mattered if it interfered with the service I was expected to provide in the morning. I went upstairs and pushed open our bedroom door. Then I stopped. The bedside lamp was on. Ryan was propped against the headboard with 2 buttons of his shirt open. Claire was curled beside him, her head against his shoulder, wrapped in my gray cashmere throw. She looked asleep. Or at least she had looked asleep before the door opened. Ryan sat up immediately. Natalie. Claire's eyes opened, and she pulled away from him. Oh my God. Did I fall asleep? There are moments when real life becomes so predictable it feels like bad television. We were talking, Ryan said. Her jet lag is still messed up. She got tired. That's all. I looked at the bed. The living room wasn't available? His face hardened. Don't start. Start what? Turning everything into something dirty. I didn't argue. I took out my phone and snapped a photo of the bed. Ryan's expression changed. What are you doing? Documenting it. Delete that. Why? Because it proves nothing. I nodded. Then you have nothing to worry about. I walked into the closet and pulled out a small rolling suitcase. Passport. Laptop. Work documents. Jewelry box. 2 weeks of clothes. I packed without rushing. Claire finally got off the bed. Natalie, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come in here. I looked at her. You're right. Nothing happened between me and Ryan. That's something you two can explain to yourselves. Ryan moved between me and the door. Where are you going? A hotel. We leave tomorrow. I almost laughed. Even then, his first concern was whether I would still be available to transport his luggage. I know. Then stop being dramatic. Sleep in the guest room. Everybody cools down tonight, and we deal with it tomorrow. I pulled the suitcase handle up. You know what's strange, Ryan? You honestly think you're still in a position to tell me how I'm allowed to react. Then I walked out. He called my name from the hallway. I didn't turn around. At 6:40 the next morning, Madison texted me. We're heading to the airport. Don't forget the luggage. Love you. She added 3 hearts. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied with one word. Okay. At 7:15, I called a local luggage transport company. 6 suitcases and 2 golf bags were picked up and delivered to Robert and Linda's house. I paid the delivery fee. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't throw their things away. I simply returned their property to the people who owned it. At 8, I parked the SUV back in my garage. At 8:20, I booked myself a first-class ticket to Santa Barbara. Not because I needed revenge. Because I realized I couldn't remember the last time I had planned a trip around what I wanted. For 7 years, I knew Linda preferred rooms near the elevator. Robert couldn't walk long distances without pain. Madison had a peanut allergy. Ryan liked west-facing rooms because he wanted sunset photos. But I couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked me one simple question. Where do you want to go? Their plane landed in San Diego at 11:30. At 12:07, Ryan called for the first time. I didn't answer. 12:11, again. 12:15, again. At 12:18, he texted. The hotel says our reservation was canceled. Call me. I put the phone back in my purse. At 12:24, another message came in. The rental car is gone too. Natalie, this isn't funny. That made me smile. Not because I enjoyed watching them struggle. Because Ryan still believed this was a prank designed to force him to pay attention to me. At 1 o'clock, he called again. This time I answered. What did you do? The airport was loud behind him. I could hear Madison complaining about the heat, Linda asking when the luggage would arrive, and Robert arguing with someone about taxi prices. I canceled the reservations I made. Why? Because I'm not going. Fine. Don't come. But why cancel our hotel? I paused. Because I booked it. And I paid for it. Natalie, don't act like a child. We're already in San Diego. I know. So, what are we supposed to do now? Book another hotel. It's the weekend. Everything by the water is sold out, and the rooms that are left cost a fortune. That sounds like something you should have considered before removing the person paying for the vacation from the vacation. There was silence on the other end. Then Ryan lowered his voice. Do you really have to make our marriage about money? There it was again. I leaned back in the airport lounge. I'm not the one making our marriage about money. You just didn't notice I was missing until my money went missing too. Where are you? The airport. His voice relaxed slightly. Okay, good. Book the next flight to San Diego. We can deal with everything else when you get here. I'm flying to Santa Barbara. What? I'm taking a vacation. Natalie. Have fun. I ended the call. Before I boarded, Claire sent me a private message. I know you're angry, but you didn't have to ruin the entire family trip because of me. Ryan is under a lot of stress right now. Because of me. She had summarized the problem perfectly without realizing it. I sent her the only message I ever sent directly about the trip. You misunderstood. I didn't cancel your vacation. I stopped paying for it. In Santa Barbara, I checked into a 1-bedroom ocean view suite. It wasn't the most expensive hotel on the coast, but my balcony faced the Pacific. I put my phone on silent, showered, changed, and went downstairs for dinner. For the first 20 minutes, I kept reaching toward the empty chair across from me whenever something happened around the restaurant. A dog barked on the patio. A couple nearby laughed too loudly. The sunset turned the windows orange. My body still expected someone else to be there, someone whose preferences I was supposed to track. Then the server asked if I wanted another glass of wine. I almost said, whatever works, because that had become my automatic answer to almost everything. Instead, I looked at the menu and chose for myself. It was such a small thing that I felt ridiculous for noticing it. That was when I understood how much of my life had become invisible administration. I didn't just pay bills. I remembered Robert's cardiology appointments. I kept Linda's preferred hotel loyalty number in my phone. I knew which airline seat Madison liked and which restaurant Ryan hated because the lighting was bad for photos. I carried birthdays, passwords, reservations, prescriptions, insurance renewals, holiday plans, and every minor crisis that arrived with the words, "Natalie, do you know?" No one had asked me to become the operating system of the Cole family. I had volunteered, one helpful decision at a time. And they had eventually forgotten there was a person inside the system. When I checked my phone again at 8:40 that night, I had 27 missed calls. 19 were from Ryan. I didn't want to answer the next one. But Daniel had reminded me that before filing, it was useful to preserve communications. So when call number 28 came in, I picked up. "Finally," Ryan said. His voice was sharper than it had been at noon. "Did you shut off the travel card?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because it's my account, and you were an authorized user." "We're on vacation." "You're on vacation." "My parents and Madison are here too." "I know." "What are they supposed to do?" "Adults can pay their own expenses." "Do you know how much I've spent today?" "No." "Over $4,000 for last-minute hotel rooms. Almost $2,000 for a rental car. And all the tickets you canceled are gone." "Sounds like an expensive trip." He exploded. "Can you stop doing that? Stop being sarcastic and turn the card back on. I'll apologize when we get home." "Okay. Is that what you want?" "What are you apologizing for?" Silence. "The plane ticket?" I asked. "Claire sleeping in our bed? Turning me into your driver and luggage service." "She did not sleep in our bed. We were talking." "See? Even now, you're arguing vocabulary instead of understanding the problem." "Natalie, what do you want from me?" It was the first time in 7 years he had asked that question in exactly those words. "Too late. I want you to start paying for your own choices." I hung up. The next morning, I took my laptop to a cafe near the beach and continued going through the credit card statements. At first, the charges looked small enough to ignore. Dinner for two, $173. Cocktail bar downtown, $96. Boutique hotel parking, $48. I recognized those dates. Twice, Ryan had told me he was entertaining clients. One was the week before our anniversary, when he claimed he had a last-minute company training event. I kept scrolling. 3 months earlier, during Claire's second week back in Denver, jewelry store, $1,260. 1 month later, resort restaurant, $412. 2 weeks before the trip, designer boutique, $2,870. All charged to my travel account. Authorized user, Ryan Cole. My hand stopped on the trackpad. Suddenly, losing my first-class seat seemed almost irrelevant. It hadn't been a single impulsive decision. The seat was just the first time a pattern that had existed for months was placed directly in front of my face. I exported every statement as a PDF and sent them to Daniel. Then I opened our shared calendar and compared dates. The $173 dinner had happened on a Tuesday when Ryan told me a regional buyer was in town. I had stayed late at work that night and felt guilty for not being home when he returned. The boutique hotel parking charge matched the evening. He said he was helping Robert move equipment out of storage. The resort restaurant charge happened the same weekend. Ryan told me he needed space to clear his head and drove into the mountains alone. He had not simply spent money without asking. He had built little stories around every charge so I would never think to question them. That detail mattered more than the totals. A person can make a stupid purchase and apologize. A person can get carried away trying to impress an old friend. But a lie that requires planning is different. It means you had time to understand the boundary, step over it, and prepare a cover story before you came home. I thought about all the times Ryan accused me of being too focused on work. He was right about one thing. I worked hard. What he left out was that my work paid for the spacious house where he entertained Claire, the vacations that made him look generous, and the credit limit he used to make himself look successful. Then I texted Ryan. I need you to explain the charges from March 14th, April 2nd, May 19th, and last Friday. 10 minutes later, he replied. What charges? I sent screenshots. Then he disappeared for an hour. When he finally called, he sounded tired. Those aren't what you think. By then, even the sentence couldn't disappoint me. What are they? Claire just came back. She didn't have everything set up yet. I helped her with a few things. With my card. It's the family card. The primary account is mine. We're married. Do you really have to separate everything like that? You used my credit line to buy another woman almost $3,000 in merchandise, and your defense is that we're married? She's going to pay it back. Has she? Silence. What about the $1,260 jewelry store charge? Birthday gift. I leaned back in my chair. Last year, for my birthday, you gave me a succulent. Natalie, stop comparing everything. I laughed. You're right. What? There really is no comparison. I ended the call. That was the moment I knew I would divorce him. Not because Claire was beautiful. Not because I knew whether Ryan had physically cheated. By then, that question had become smaller than I expected. I was done because he had known his behavior would hurt me, and he had lied repeatedly to keep doing it. And he hadn't only used my trust to support whatever was happening with Claire. He had used my money to finance it. Daniel sent preliminary divorce papers that evening. The process wasn't a fantasy where I pressed a button and Ryan walked away with nothing. The house was purchased before marriage, but marital funds had contributed to maintenance, so there were calculations to make. The joint accounts had to be divided properly. Retirement contributions, vehicles, and investments acquired during the marriage had to be addressed. Oddly, the realism was a relief. I didn't need Ryan to be ruined. I needed the division to be fair. And, from that point forward, I needed to stop paying for things that were not mine to carry. I redirected my paycheck to an individual account. I left enough money in our joint checking account to cover the ordinary shared bills for the month. I contacted the cell phone company and scheduled the family plan to split in 30 days. I told Madison that the insurance on her SUV would need to move into her name the following month. I did not cancel her apartment rent immediately. I gave her 60 days. Then I sent her a short email. Madison, I will continue paying your current rent for the next 2 months. After that, please arrange future housing expenses with your parents, Ryan, or your university financial aid office. I will not continue covering your living costs. She called 10 minutes later. Are you serious? Yes. What does this have to do with me? Nothing. That's why I'm not asking you to take sides in my marriage. Then why are you stopping my rent? Because paying your rent was never my obligation. She went quiet. A few seconds later, she said, Is this because you're mad about Claire? Madison, you're 21. You should understand the difference between being angry and no longer financing another adult's life. Another silence. I thought you wanted to help me. I did. And now you don't? No. The word came out without guilt. That surprised me. I had spent years believing that a refusal needed a legal brief attached to it. It didn't. I don't want to anymore was a complete reason. The Coles came home from San Diego on the 3rd day. I learned pieces of what happened there later, mostly because everyone told a different version. Robert said the first hotel they found was 2 miles inland and charged nearly triple the normal rate because of a convention. Linda hated it because the room faced a parking structure instead of the water. Madison had packed half her clothes in the luggage I sent home, so she spent the first afternoon buying basics at a drugstore. Ryan tried to recreate the itinerary I had built, only to discover that summer reservations in San Diego don't magically appear because you're angry at your wife. The zoo's premium tour was sold out. The sailing dinner had no openings. The restaurant I canceled could fit them in only at 9:45 p.m., and Ryan refused when he heard the prix-fixe cost. Claire apparently offered to pay for a few things, but not enough to carry 5 adults through a week of last-minute coastal travel. By the second night, Robert had asked Ryan a question he should have asked years earlier. How much of this stuff does Natalie normally pay for? According to Madison, nobody answered immediately. That silence probably taught them more than anything I could have said. The vacation had been planned for a full week. It lasted less than 72 hours. The evening Ryan returned to Denver, he came straight to my hotel. I didn't let him upstairs. We met in the lobby. He looked exhausted. "Are you happy now?" he asked before he even sat down. "About what?" "The trip was a disaster. My mother cried half the flight home. Madison says she's never taking another family trip. My dad and I almost got into a fight over the hotel bill. Sounds like you didn't have much fun." "Natalie." He lowered his voice when people nearby started looking over. "Did you have to drag everybody else into this?" "I didn't. You stopped paying Madison's rent. You're kicking my mother off the family phone plan. You're saying you won't keep helping with my parents' bills. How is that not dragging them into it?" "I'm withdrawing from expenses I voluntarily took on. We're family." I held his eyes. "Your mother said Claire was family too." His face changed. "You know that's not what she meant." "I know exactly what she meant." "Then why?" "She meant I was useful for paying the bills, and Claire was useful for sitting beside you." He stopped talking. For the first time since this began, something close to shame crossed his face. "I admit I handled the trip badly," he said. "Which part?" "The ticket." "What else?" "Claire being in our room." "What else?" He looked away. "The credit card charges." "Why were you buying things for her?" "She just got back. Her job situation wasn't stable yet. I wanted to help." "You have your own credit card." "My limit isn't that high." It was the most honest thing he had said in days. I nodded slowly. "There it is." He realized what he had admitted. "That's not what I meant. I wasn't trying to take advantage of you. Ryan, you can afford your own life. You just got used to treating my resources like they were permanently open to you. Isn't that what marriage is?" "No. Marriage is shared access with shared consent. It isn't one person deciding for both people because the other one usually cleans it up." He stared at me. "What do you want me to do?" I opened my bag and put the papers Daniel had prepared on the table between us. "Start by getting a lawyer." The color left Ryan's face when he read the first page. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." He looked up. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Over one vacation?" For the first time, the question sounded almost absurd enough to be funny. "If you still think this is about one vacation, we really don't have anything left to discuss." He pushed the papers away. "I'm not signing that. It's a petition, Ryan. Not a permission slip. I don't agree to a divorce." "Then tell your attorney." "Natalie, 7 years. We had 7 years. You can't throw all of that away because Claire came back 3 months ago." I stood. "I'm not the one who threw 7 years away. You spent the last 3 months showing me what those 7 years were worth to you." I left the lobby without looking back. The divorce filing scared Ryan. For the first week, though, he behaved as if paperwork were just another problem I would eventually solve for him. He texted practical questions that were almost surreal. "Where is the car insurance login?" "Do you know when the HOA payment is due?" "Which company services the furnace?" "What password did we use for the family phone account?" I answered only what Daniel advised me to answer. The rest Ryan had to figure out. One night he called because an automatic payment had failed on a card he forgot was connected to my account. "Can you just fix it this one time?" he asked. That sentence hit me harder than any apology. This one time. Our marriage had been built out of thousands of one-times. One bill. One appointment. One favor. One emergency. One family trip. One more thing Natalie could handle because she was good at handling things. "No," I said. "Natalie, it's a late fee. This is stupid." "Then pay the late fee." He went silent, not because the fee mattered, but because the answer was new. But what truly panicked him was what happened when he went home and finally experienced the cost of his own life without me absorbing most of it. He didn't have to pay my mortgage. The house was mine, and Daniel advised me to give him reasonable time to find somewhere else to live. But everything else returned to him at once. His car payment. His insurance. His phone. His personal credit cards. More than $6,000 in last-minute San Diego expenses. And several $1,000s in charges he had made for Claire. Those amounts had once been scattered across my statements like drops of water. When they all flowed back into his account, He finally learned that enough drops can drown you. Claire became another problem. I later found out that she had believed Ryan was much wealthier than he actually was. She hadn't invented that idea on her own. Ryan had built it for her. He drove my car when he met her. He entertained her in my house. He bought her gifts using my high-limit card. When he discussed trips, he said things like, "I booked the resort," or "I got us the suites." He rarely mentioned that the reservation account said Natalie Walker. So when Claire returned to Denver, she didn't see a sales manager earning $65,000 a year. She saw a man living in a beautiful house, taking his family on expensive vacations, buying several $1,000 gifts, and apparently supporting his parents with ease. Ryan enjoyed that misunderstanding. When I withdrew, I didn't just remove money. I removed the stage set he had been standing on. 2 weeks after the divorce petition was filed, Claire called me. I almost ignored it. Then she texted, "There is something I think you deserve to see." We met at a cafe across town. She looked different from the woman who had arrived at my house in a cream trench coat. No sunglasses. Barely any makeup. None of the quiet confidence of someone who thought she had already won. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive me," she said. "You won't." "I understand that." "Then why are we here?" She pushed her phone across the table. It was a message thread with Ryan. A lot of it wasn't sexual. Not in the obvious way. There were no explicit photos. No messages saying "I love you." No hotel reservations. In some ways, what I read was worse. Ryan had been describing a future where I barely existed. "Natalie is obsessed with work. She doesn't really like family life. We're more like roommates now. I don't even know what we'll do with the house eventually. Sometimes I think if you hadn't left, everything would have turned out differently." That last message had been sent on our wedding anniversary. I read it twice. Then I looked up. "Why are you showing me this now?" Claire stared down at her coffee. "Because I finally realized what he told me and what was actually true were two different things." "Which part?" She gave a tired laugh. "Almost all of it." She had thought Ryan owned at least half the house. She had thought the San Diego vacation was his gift to the family. She had assumed his parents were financially stable because Ryan had been supporting them for years. She only started questioning any of that when the trip collapsed. Linda, furious and humiliated, had apparently said over the phone, if Natalie hadn't suddenly lost her mind, we wouldn't be standing here unable to afford a hotel. That was the first crack in the story Claire had been given. "The handbag he bought me," Claire said. "I thought he paid for it himself." "He didn't." "I know now." She looked away. I returned it. The refund should go back to the original card. I didn't thank her. She didn't ask me to. I studied her face. "Did you sleep with him?" She looked up. "No." "Did you kiss him?" She hesitated. "Long enough." "Once," she said. 2 weeks before the trip. There it was. The answer I once believed I needed more than anything. Strangely, it hurt less than I expected. Maybe because I had already made my decision before I had proof. "He said it was a mistake afterward," Claire continued. "Then he told me your marriage had been over for a long time and you just hadn't filed anything yet." I nodded. Classic. Her eyes filled. "I'm not innocent. I knew he was married. I just believed the version of the story that made what I was doing easier to live with." "What happens now?" "I'm leaving Denver." "Because he doesn't have money?" The question stung her, but she didn't get defensive. "Partly." I hadn't expected the honesty. "Mostly because I realized he's been borrowing your life to prove who he is." I don't know if I liked Ryan, or if I liked the person I thought he had become. I looked at her for a long moment. There was no victory in it. 2 women had finally seen the same man clearly. We had simply paid different prices to get there. "Send those messages to my attorney," I said. She nodded. "I will." As I stood to leave, she called my name. "Natalie." I turned. I didn't know about the ticket. I said nothing. "Ryan told me he had canceled your reservation and grabbed the first-class seat for me as soon as it went back into inventory. I asked if you'd be upset. He said you wouldn't because..." She stopped. "Because what?" "Because you always handle things." I smiled once. That sounded exactly like him. "Natalie will handle it." "The debt?" Natalie handled it. The medical bills? Natalie handled them. Madison's rent? Natalie handled it. Family vacations? Natalie handled them. Even the boundaries between Ryan and another woman somehow became something I was expected to handle without making anybody uncomfortable. The only thing he miscalculated, I said, was that one day I might decide not to. Divorce did not end in a week like it does in bad television. It took months, and some of those months were uglier and quieter than the trip that started everything. There were days when I felt powerful and days when I missed Ryan. Missing him never made me want the marriage back. It only reminded me that leaving the wrong life can still mean grieving parts of it that were once real. Daniel told me not to confuse grief with doubt. Therapy helped too. For the first time, I had to ask why being needed had become so tangled up with being loved, and why I had been so proud of carrying more than everyone else that I stopped noticing who had learned to let me. The legal process was ordinary and expensive. We exchanged financial records, argued through attorneys, and went to mediation. Ryan initially claimed a larger interest in the house, but the purchase records showed that I had bought it before the marriage. Some marital investments were divided. A vehicle purchased during the marriage went to him, and we both paid legal fees we would have preferred to spend on anything else. It was not a fantasy ending where I took everything and left him with nothing. It was fair. That was enough. I never wanted Ryan ruined. I wanted him to stop having automatic access to things that were never his to assume: my credit, my unpaid labor, my management of his family, and my habit of rescuing him from consequences. Linda came to see me once. She tried to explain that Claire had always felt like one of her children. I know, I said. You do too, she insisted. No. If I had been one of your children, you wouldn't have believed my seat could be given away while my money still had to stay. Her eyes filled. We remember everything you've done for us. Remembering isn't the same as respecting. She told me Ryan regretted everything and that he and Claire were no longer speaking. I told her both facts were his problem. When she asked whether I would give him another chance, I answered the only way I could. If I go back now, all I prove is that your family was right about me, that no matter how I'm treated, I'll eventually come back and take care of everything again. She never asked again. Madison got a campus job and qualified for additional aid. Months later, she sent me a long apology. She said that only after she had to calculate rent, groceries, gas, tuition, and car insurance for herself did she understand that those things had never appeared by magic. I did not start paying her rent again, but I wrote back. Learning to carry your own life matters more than any apology. We had coffee occasionally after that. Our relationship did not go back to what it had been, and it did not need to. Ryan's last attempt to win me back came about a month before the final divorce hearing. He waited outside my office building for nearly 2 hours. When I came out, he was holding a paper bag. Inside was a small succulent, almost exactly like the one he had given me on my birthday the year before. I couldn't help laughing. You remember? He asked. Of course I remember. I didn't realize until later how terrible that was. Which year? He laughed too, but there was no joy in it. Every year. We stood on the sidewalk for a while. He had lost weight. I had heard that he moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, sold the motorcycle, and picked up weekend work to pay down the credit card debt left from San Diego. Claire had moved to Seattle. She left, he said. I know. I used to think her coming back meant life was giving me a chance to see what would have happened if she never left. And now you know? He lowered his eyes. Now I know I lost you. I didn't answer. Natalie, I finally understand. Understand what? You were the one holding our whole life together. I shook my head. No. He looked confused. You still don't understand. Then tell me. The lesson isn't that I held everything together and you lost somebody useful. I paused. The lesson is that I thought I was your partner while you slowly started treating me like infrastructure. The house, the credit card, the insurance, the travel plans. Something permanent that would simply be there whenever you needed it. His eyes turned red. That isn't how I meant it. Maybe not, but it's what you did. He was silent for a long time. If I could start over. You can't. I didn't raise my voice. It may have been the quietest and most certain sentence I ever said during our marriage. The day the divorce became final, I didn't throw a party. I left work early and drove into the mountains. At a gas station outside the city, I remembered the night before the San Diego trip. Ryan had pushed the keys toward me and said, "You always say road trips are romantic." At the time, it had been an insult. Now, alone behind the wheel, I looked at the highway and realized the road really was beautiful. There were no 6 suitcases in the back that belonged to other people. No one in the passenger seat telling me who I needed to understand, forgive, accommodate, or carry. No vacation I had paid for where someone else got to decide whether I deserved to attend. Just me. For a while, people in Ryan's family said I had changed because of Claire. That I had become cold because of a vacation. That I had destroyed a family over money. The truth was simpler. I stopped providing a life that worked beautifully for everyone except me. They gave my place in the family to another woman. I did not fight to take the seat back. I took back my money, my time, my dignity, and the rest of my life.